You know, at RIE, many of you know we offer programs for professional people and also for parents. And in our weekly parent-infant guidance classes, small and consistent groups come together for 90 minutes to observe their babies and to see Magda Gerber's Educaring Approach modeled by a RIE Associate facilitator. And we are very grateful to two RIE parents, Melanie Snell and Antonio Rangel, who will next speak about RIE from the parent's perspective. Melanie and her husband David have 3 children. The first 2 are graduates of parent-infant guidance classes, and the third, who is 14 months old, yes, is currently in class. So first, I'd like you to welcome Melanie Snell.
Thank you. First, I'd like to say thank you to everybody who's worked so hard to create this day. It has been enlightening and entertaining and just really wonderful. When Liz Memel called me and asked me if I wanted to speak at the next RIE conference, I was certain that she had misdialed her phone. I thought, I don't have a PhD in child development, and I don't have decades of experience in RIE. But when Liz Memel asks me to do something, the answer is almost always yes. So I thought, what am I going to say to these people about infant mental health and creating a secure beginning? And then I realized I could give you a view from the trenches. You see, I'm in it deep, sometimes well over my head. I have 3 RIE kids. My daughter Kylie is 6.5, and my son Cole is 3.5, and my little baby boy Reese is 1. David and I were lucky enough to find RIE when Kylie was about 4 months old, and we have been trying to bring the teachings of Magda to life in our home ever since. Now, I have to confess that our house is not always the picture of RIE tranquility that you will find down in the parent-infant classes on Melrose. But we do try. Now, today we have already heard about how a child's mental health is not a separate thing. It's part of the child as a whole. It's a complex web of intertwined influences between the physical, emotional, and spiritual child. So to create a secure beginning for the mental health of the child is to create a secure beginning for the child. So do we wrap them in bubble wrap and hover around taking care of all of their challenges for them? As safe as that sounds, RIE has taught me that that is not necessarily the way to go. We need to allow our children to make decisions, to face challenges, to fail, to succeed, to try again, to quit, all with our love and support, but without our intervention. Now, reading this in the books and understanding it is one thing, but believing it in your very core and making it a part of your life is a whole other. And when I first started implementing the RIE practices into my parenting, I was really very unsure. Was I doing the right thing? Did this stuff really work? I want to tell you a couple of stories about the aha moments that made me believe that RIE was really parenting gold. I have a great neighborhood, and we have tons of kids, and oddly, most all of them are boys, and a little bit older than my daughter Kylie. When she was 2 years old, we had a playhouse in the backyard that was about 4 feet high. And when those little boys would come over and play, the first thing they would do would climb up on top of that house and stand up and yell at the top of their lungs. They loved it. I think maybe because other mothers might not let them do that sort of thing. But Kylie really wanted to be up there with them. And she would try, and she just couldn't quite make it. And she would beg me to help her. And I thought, okay, there's some RIE principles coming into play here. I wanted to let her challenge herself and challenge her physical abilities and take care of her own problems. So I told her, when your body is ready, you'll be able to get up there. That was a little comfort to her, and she was very frustrated. And this is how the summer went, that entire summer. She would get frustrated. I would say, when your body is ready, you will be able to get up there. Well, late in the summer, I was doing some gardening, and I was keeping an eye on her as she played around that little house. And I looked up just in time to see her get that last foothold and heft herself up on top of that house. And she scrambled to her feet, and she threw her arms in the air, and she said, "My body did it!" And she stood triumphant and with this amazing look of self-satisfaction on her face. She did not look to me for praise or approval. She was in her own little world, completely absorbed in the amazing feeling that only comes with knowing that you and you alone persisted and achieved a long sought-after goal. Now, I believe that is something that builds a strong, self-confident person. And it also helped give me, the parent, the confidence I needed to know that RIE really was for us. Now, my son, Cole, had a similar test of wills and physical determination. Cole loves the park, and he has been going since he was less than 1 year old. I take him sometimes on the week, but my husband, David, takes the kids to the park almost every Saturday to give me a little break at home, which is great. And Cole quickly mastered every apparatus, well, almost every apparatus on the play structure. He loved to climb, and he went down all the slides. He even took my husband calls one of them the tooth buster. He even mastered that quickly, and he retained all his teeth and everything. And despite the fact that one of us was always really nearby and he looked super confident and like he knew what he was doing, there were a lot of parents who really wanted to help him. And we would step in and say very politely, "Thank you, but he's fine." But there was one thing that he couldn't do. It's the fireman's pole. It was a pole about 1.5 feet away from this platform that was 7 feet off the ground. And he would scramble up there, and about every week for 2 years, he made attempts at that pole. Sometimes he would just stand there and stare it down, and sometimes he would reach out for it with his arms, or he would lay down on his stomach and reach back with his legs. And as he got older, his attempts got more daring, and you would see him dangling off of some part of the structure. And although we were always there, we were far too far away and far too cavalier for what some parents thought was certain mortal peril for our small child. David bore the brunt of most of that, well-meaning mothers who thought he just had no clue what he was supposed to be doing there at the park. But Cole never hurt himself, and eventually, little by little, he made his way down the pole. There was no triumphant cry. He simply went down it again, and again, and again. Now, the difference between Kylie's house and Cole's pole could just be that difference in their personalities. Or it could be that the other kids made the house look like some sort of quest, and the pole was really just another apparatus, albeit a difficult one, that he needed to master. Whatever it was, both of my children tested the limits of their physical abilities, but on their own terms. And all we had to do was have the confidence to listen to that little RIE voice in our head and stay out of their way. Now, but these, of course, are physical challenges, and a child's mental, emotional well-being rests on much more than that. As part of our nighttime ritual at my house, one of us will read a book to Cole, and one will read a book to Kylie, and Cole's books are shorter and much more age-appropriate for him. So you'll read about 3 of those, and you'll wonder if Kylie's done yet, and we'll ask the other parent, is it okay if Cole has another book? Well, it took me by surprise one night when Cole pipes in with, "It's okay with me if we have another book." Well, I was really proud of him for being confident in speaking up, and really ashamed of myself for not asking him. and embarrassed that I was standing right there and talking about this and not consulting him at all. Now, despite the fact that I may have failed in this particular case, I think his confidence to speak up for himself can be traced back to asking him if he wants a blue or a red bib in RIE class when he was 1. Or maybe it was the fact that we always talked to him just like we talked to everyone else. Or he felt that he needed to speak up and express his opinion because we generally do consider him a partner when we are taking care of him. Well, I was very proud of him to be able to speak up for himself, and since then, it's okay with me, or it's not okay with me, him asserting those things into our conversations has happened a lot, even if it doesn't really matter what his opinion is when we're thinking of filing our taxes, whether we should itemize or not. He doesn't, but he pipes up with his opinion. Now, I've told you several stories about how RIE has helped build confidence and security in my children's worlds, but the world can be a little more challenging than the local play structure, and it has been difficult for me to accept that I can't always be there all the time to support them. Things are going to happen at school and out in the world, and my great hope is that these RIE-influenced experiences have helped them develop enough skills to enable them to cope with adversities on their own. The other day, Kylie, who is 6 and in 1st grade, wrote a letter in school, and she put it in her backpack for me to read when she got home. Now, you'll have to excuse me, this might not be the exact wording of my daughter's letter because I read it and I put it in a safe place, and then my 1-year-old got a hold of it and he tore about 1/3 of it off and ate it. So this is what I could piece back together. To my dear mommy, you are the best mommy. I got cranky at school this afternoon, so don't worry about me if you see my face look cranky. I might need some snuggle mommy time when I get home. I am pleased that she found a way to express herself and the difficulty she was having at school that day, and still function within the parameters of her class. Now, this was not something her teacher asked her to do. It was what she felt she needed to do to cope. Knowing that she can do that for herself helps me cope with the fear that I won't always be there for her. Now, there are bad days at school, and there's real trauma. 3 days before my son Reese's 1st birthday, he had open-heart double bypass surgery. We did everything we could think of to support him, but the cold, hard fact was that it was going to be awful, and there was nothing we could do about it. We tried many different times and in many different ways to explain to Reese and Kylie and Cole exactly what was going to happen. And we brought his favorite blanket to the hospital, and we stayed by his side every waking moment. But he still did not know what had happened to him, or where he was, or why he hurt so badly. I was almost frantic after the surgery with this desperate need to protect him. You see, he had just started walking before surgery, and I was plagued by this idea that he was going to try to walk, and he was going to fall, and he was going to seriously injure his chest. I was almost ready to throw all my RIE teaching out the window. I considered buying one of those horrible, awful little exercisers that you'd stick the babies in and they roll around in. It never came to that, thank goodness, because mostly we got some really great advice from the doctors, some very RIE advice. They said, don't worry about it. If it hurts, he won't do it. It seemed too simple almost, and very familiar in a way. So I didn't carry him around for 24 hours like I had considered doing, and we never bought the exerciser. And 3 days after surgery, he was walking and playing. Physically, He healed so amazingly quickly and with such fearless zeal. I was constantly in amazement. Emotionally, however, he seemed to need a lot of mommy snuggle time himself, and no one but mommy would do. Well, we felt that it was important to listen to him and respect his needs, so I made myself available to him as much as I possibly could. And 3 weeks passed, and we thought we had sailed through this episode with ease. Then Kylie's teacher began sending notes home from school that Kylie was complaining of some various ailments every day, and that she was unfocused and easily distracted. At the same time, Cole, my 3-year-old, was calling me in to see every picture he drew and look at every tower he built and ask me if I liked them. And he seemed to be desperately seeking my approval, which he had never done before. Meanwhile, Reese's sleep was all messed up, and he was waking up several times in the night, not necessarily because of the pain, but more for comfort. It seemed that all of a sudden, everyone needed a mommy snuggle time. Well, there's only one mommy, and there are only so many hours in the day. But it was clear that I needed to make better use of those hours. And the answer for us was once nothing time. I needed to give each of my children individually some undivided attention where I wasn't distracted by anything. Now, this seemed a little bit difficult to work into my schedule when I felt like I was needed in a million places to do a million things. But when I had some alone time with each of the kids, you could see the transformation. A half an hour of once nothing time with each child would buy me several hours of no whining and not everyone needing me all at once. Now, we are almost 8 weeks post-surgery now, and we are fairly normal. I use that term loosely with my family. But my children still need once nothing time. But the truth is, they always need once nothing time. Not only when there's a horrific event, but all the time. The last thing I want to say about RIE doesn't really have much to do with supporting my children's good mental health, but it certainly does support mine. One of the very best things that RIE has done for me has given me and my husband a united parenting approach. David was not sold on RIE at the beginning. He wrote it off as one of my crazy things. But I got very sick when Kylie was young, and he had to take her to parent-infant class for a while. And quickly, he was sold. And now, in many ways, he is much more naturally RIE than I am. Don't tell him I said that. The great thing about it, though, is that I have complete confidence in him when he is with our kids, that he may not do things exactly the same way as I would, but they're always going to come from a place of respect. And when we face a challenge that we simply don't know how to deal with, we sit down together and say, what would be the RIE way to handle this? We don't have all the right answers, and we will make mistakes. But I am confident with RIE that we're not only loving parents, but we are developing honest and trusting relationships that respect our children as unique individuals. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Melanie.